Thank you for tuning into Hinton Cast. This is Maggie Block. I am the deputy publisher at Hinton Publishing. We are so excited to be sharing these conversations that we had with authors in the Pacific Northwest who belong to communities that have historically been under-invited to share their work, aka the kind of author we publish. Now, I need to let you know that these are conversations that we had in early 2024. There's a number of reasons why we weren't able to get these podcasts out earlier. The number one being that we're a really small team who are trying to accomplish a heck of a lot. That said, these conversations are evergreen. Don't mind us if you hear us talking about something in the present tense that you now know is in the past. The knowledge, the insight, the brilliance of these conversations are going to resonate with you today. And hey, better late than never, right? Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic back in time to Marcus and myself. Thank you.
All right, and welcome, lovers of literature, back to the Hinton Cast. As always, I am Marcus Harrison Green, publisher and co-founder of Hinton Publishing. As always, I am joined by my wonderful, magnificent, marvelous, the Deadpool to my Wolverine, Steph Curry to my LeBron James, talking about the Olympics, y'all, hitting those threes, the Aja Wilson to my Breonna Stewart, the wonderful, wondrous, again, deputy publisher of Hinton, Maggie Block. Maggie, how are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, that was such an incredible intro. I am doing good. For listeners who know me very well, I am up earlier than I'm used to, and now I feel so energized. I have the power of our Olympian basketball teams
Yes.
and the funniest superheroes in the Marvel universe. So I'm ready to rock.
That is true. Although I'd say, Wolverine's somewhat depressive, whereas...
But you were Wolverine.
That is true. That
I'm
is true.
Deadpool.
That is
I'm
true. Fair
very
enough.
funny.
Fair enough. And I definitely am depressive at times. But anyway, it's neither here nor there.
I mean, me too.
Yeah. That being said, we are so privileged to be joined today by Reagan Jackson, she, her, who is a multi-genre writer, artist, podcast host and producer, facilitator, and international educator, like a whole bunch of other superlatives as well. But the one that I am most proud of is that she is the first author to ever be published on Hinton Publishing, which has a special place in my heart, head, and spirit. Even though I'm an atheist and don't believe in spirits, if there was one, she'd be right in there. She is the author of Still True, The Evolution of an Unexpected Journalist, which was published last March by Hinton Publishing. And she is also the author of Summoning Unicorns, Love in Guatemala, God, Hair, Love, and America, Coco La Swish, When Rainbows Go Blue, Coco La Swish, A Fish from a Different Rainbow. She's also a poet and writes for some wonderful publications such as the South Seattle Emerald and the Seattle Globalist. So to you, Reagan Jackson, I ask, how are you doing on this fine morning that we are recording this podcast?
I am wonderful. Thank you, Marcus, for that introduction.
That is great. That is great. Well,
Yeah, one thing you need to add to your bio, I realized as I copied and pasted your bio into our notes, is you have to say that you are an IPPY Bronze Award winner for nonfiction for Still True.
I know I'm not wearing the medal today, but I have been.
Okay.
You should.
Wear your chains. Wear your chains.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, let's
Right.
I feel like we could definitely come up with some cool accessories for you to just clip it on to.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's a vibe. It's got its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ribbon.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, it keeps with our sort of, somewhat of our Olympic theme here with you just, you are the Simone Biles, shall we say, of literary world.
Could you imagine Simone Biles at PCC with her gold medals?
As much as gymnasts make, I actually could. Yes. It's not too far-fetched.
Yeah, it was really fun. I feel like they sent you the medal during the Olympics this year and that Just I really could feel it.
It did. It gave it
Yes.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, as I've said, it is the first of many awards, and
Thank you.
I'm sure that we will be adding more and more praise and plaudits to you on our social media page. As a matter of fact, I am sure of it. But that being said, I want to really get into this book, Still True, The Evolution of an Unexpected Journalist. Can you share a little bit with our listeners who, I don't know why they wouldn't be, but for the one or two who are not familiar with your book, can you talk a little bit about it and, your process of writing it?
Yeah, so Still True, The Evolution of an Unexpected Journalist is kind of a hybrid. It's part memoir and part time capsule of my experience of being a journalist over the last 10 years. So it's a book that snuck up on me in a way. Like I didn't set out with the intention to write this book necessarily, but it was writing itself throughout that last 10 years of just the time I got to spend connecting deeply with folks in this community, learning more about the ways in which we're represented in the media and misrepresented, and wanting to kind of, come in with my own interventions around that. And then just how that has evolved into not necessarily wanting to be a counter narrative, but wanting to just recenter what narratives look like.
Yeah, can you talk actually a little bit more about that misrepresentation, particularly as media outlets continue to sort of either consolidate or are just under resourced?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. One is, so I grew up in Wisconsin. So I came out to Seattle when I was barely 18, went to UW, and my life began in Seattle as a North Ender. So, I lived in the U District, then I lived in Wallingford, kind of Green Lake, Greenwood area, and my map of Seattle in my head didn't really go that much further south than downtown. Like I had heard about this mythical place called Columbia City, but I didn't even really know that there was anything like south of that.
Right.
And when you look at like even just the shirts that they print out when you're at the Pike Place Market or whatever, if there's neighborhood shirts, it's like, North Gray, Greenwood, Green Lake, Finney Ridge, it gets to like, and it's like Columbia City. That's it. There's no Mount Baker. Beacon Hill doesn't exist.
Right.
Hillman City, what is that?
Right.
Like Rainier Beach Skyway. What is that? So it was years of living in the city before I even really knew that there was a South End. And then when I did find out, everything I heard about it was bad. Right? It's all the superlatives of crime and that's where you can go and get shot. But then when I went, I was like, I don't know. Maybe I just missed the drive-by that day. Like it just, it felt like the rest of Seattle, only with way more people of color.
Yeah.
And better food.
Yeah.
So much better food.
I can attest to somebody who has called South Seattle home for the majority of his life. So yes, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Well, but then I kind of had to dig a little deeper around like why is that the narrative? Like what is happening? And it's because the folks who lived in South Seattle were not having the opportunity to share our stories or to talk about who we are and what this part of the city is for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is a collection of 10 years of your journalistic writing. When you look back and you look, when you look at these sections, where do you see the most change from where you started writing about something to where you last left off writing about something in this book?
Oh, I don't know. That's kind of it's a difficult question because I'm nitpicky. Or just
Fair.
I'm like, I don't know. It's all changed. It's all different.
Yeah.
In some ways, but maybe in the hood, because I've definitely when I started writing about when I first published like Who's Afraid of Rainier Beach versus like some of my later pieces, I've had a lot of different experiences in my neighborhood. It's completely looks different visibly than what it looked like before. The house flipping teams have come in. There's been a lot of gentrification. There's still quite a few people of color in the neighborhood, but there's also just this sense of a cultural shift around who my neighbors are and, you know, how they want to relate to the area, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is one of my big selling points of your book is like we're really able to see when you first move to Rainier Beach, people are like, oh my gosh, why? Why would you live in this neighborhood? And by the time you stop writing about Rainier Beach, you're literally getting notes on your doors from white strangers being like, if you ever want to sell, like, what an it like 10 years is such a short period of time, and what an incredible journey that you and that entire neighborhood have gone through.
I get calls every day.
Really?
Yeah, actually, like I have to block them
Wow.
Oh my god.
every day, and I'm like, first of all, I'm like, where is my phone number where these people are just
Yeah.
able
How
to,
do
like,
they
find it?
know?
Stalking
Ooh.
or something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you used to have, is it correct, right? You used to have signs on your lawn that would essentially said, like, dude, you know, I'm not selling, you know, get the F away kind of thing.
Yeah, I did. Well, and then it just, you know, I wrote the article about it and it became just too visible. Like people were literally like driving to my house and like looking at my signs in a way where I was like, this doesn't feel entirely safe. So I'm just going to be a little bit more incognito of my views here.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many of the essays in your book, because, you know, they were written for journalistic outlets at the time, at least when they were originally published, they have so much verve and so much authenticity to them, you might say, in terms of truly being somebody who is embedded, you know, in this community and in this situation, whereas a lot of other journalism, particularly, you know, at the national level, it can be kind of like somebody swooping in as a vulture to try to extract, you know, from a community. And so you don't have a degree in journalism.
I do not.
And yet, right, you've been able to produce some of the best journalism in the city. And so
Oh, thank you.
I want to ask you, like, how has, you know, not having sort of a formal training, if you will, in journalism, how has that actually influenced, you know, your ability to write these great pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I did, to my credit. I've taken a couple journalism classes over the course of my life, but I didn't like them.
Yeah.
So I kind of think about it as, you know, they say if you want to be a great jazz musician, you have to learn classical first. So I looked at classical. I've read it. I've been steeped in it in the same way that all the rest of us have been, right? Like I've read a newspaper.
Right.
Like I've seen some media, like, you know, over the course of over the course of my life. And I took what made sense about basic structure, and then I stripped it of the things that didn't make sense to me, like the myth of objectivity. Like I'd rather actually just tell you about who I am and my positionality when I'm telling the story.
Right.
And then you can judge for yourself, like whether or not that aligns with you and your worldview. But I think this idea that somehow I could strip all the pieces of who I am outside of like the story that I'm telling, like I just don't believe in that.
Yeah. So it was very much sort of that Bruce Lee philosophy of, you know, take what is useful and discard what is useless, and then make the rest your own kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about why you think objectivity, do you think that it always doesn't work? Do you think that it ever works? Do you wish that more people would stop pretending that they were being objective? A little bit of everything.
I think we're inherently subjective.
I agree.
And if we try to make ourselves be objective, like what is the standard of that? Like, and to me, it looks like white bias. In the same way that like, I see this playing out in AI.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like there's supposedly like the neutrality of Siri's voice or like whatever, and I'm like, no, like that's a white woman.
That's a white woman.
Like,
Particularly Scarlett Johansson's voice, I guess.
yeah, I'm like that's
anyway.
that's not neutral.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, you know, culturally, like we're taught that that's what neutral is. That the default is always the white way, in a way where like we're never going to get anywhere. We're never going to find points of connection if we don't actually dismantle that as a standard.
Yeah, that's why I always thought that and not to say that UK journalism doesn't have its issues. I mean, right now there's obviously there's a lot going on with the riots that are going on in England by the far right, but and how they're being covered. But that being said, I always thought the way that they taught their journalists was a bit more, shall we say, more appropriate for the world in which we face, in the sense that they don't have a actual journalism program in the UK. They want their it's more of a liberal art. They want their journalists to know something about anthropology and sociology and economics and criminology and philosophy, right? And I said all that to say I really very much think that you bring sort of that style, if you will, to journalism, and I just wish more people, went to the Reagan Jackson School, shall we say, of storytelling.
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect, because like what I wanted to ask you about is, if there was the Reagan Jackson School of Journalism, thinking about like what's useful, what's not useful, what are the what are some things that you think you really brought to journalism because you don't have a journalism degree, and what are some things that like you either were useful from your journalism classes, or you learned as you were doing journalistic writing that you're like, okay, this is actually something I could use.
Ooh, okay. I'm thinking of a couple of things. So one is just this idea of interviewing people and how, like, posed versus unposed, right? Like, you're having a conversation with somebody and you're not mic'd up and you're just talking about what's going on in the world, versus you're on the mic, they know you're on the mic.
Yes.
Like, I noticed that you get kind of very, very different stories from folks who are guarded versus folks who are willing to be in their vulnerability. So the first thing I would work with people on would be how to have a conversation that is transparent. Like, don't do the gotcha moment. Like, don't be well, Linda Tripp with recording things. But
oh my gosh.
But yeah, because consent is, it's a thing.
Right.
But also, like, how can you put your subject at ease? How can you have a conversation where you're really meeting them where they are and where they can trust you to tell the story? Because I think so much of our journalism has been extractive and exploitative that naturally people are a bit reticent to really say the things that need to be said. But ultimately, like, then what is the point? Like, what are we capturing? What's in the time capsule if it's not like authenticity, or if it's not really meeting the moment? So I think part of it is like, why do we do this? Why do we want to tell stories about our community? What is the importance of this? Everybody going into journalism needs to have an answer to that. It can't just be like, I don't know, like just these mindless Snapchats or or Insta stories. Like, oh, I felt cute, might delete later. Like, no, like this is your time capsule. This is your body of work. Like, what do you want to say?
Right.
And then also you have to know and accept that you're going to be wrong about things. Like, we're not on the right side of history every single day, all day.
Right.
And can you look back and reflect and learn from your mistakes?
Right. I think I was listening to a podcast about they were talking about James Baldwin, because we recently celebrated his centennial
100th birthday
of the great writer and thinker, and it was his godson was talking, and he was talking about how even as great as James Baldwin was, he still had knowledge gaps, right, in his thinking, and particularly as it came to patriarchy and so forth. There's a great interview where he's talking to Nikki Giovanni, and there's also a great interview, not interview, but a debate that he has with Audre Lorde, and Audre Lorde hands him his behind on some stuff. And in James Baldwin's last book, there's an essay in there specifically uplifting black women, and it was essentially his sort of, I guess, 60 some odd years of being able to be humble enough to know that he needed to listen to folks who were closer to those situations in those communities, and so I ask you, like, how do you work about filling in your knowledge gaps at times, and humility, just in the sense that it seems, and I'm not trying to sound like an older person, I guess, but it seems like so often on, social media or YouTube influencers and so forth, people want to double down sort of on wrong positions as opposed to having a level of humility to be like, nah, I got it wrong and I'm going to try to do better.
Yeah, I mean, first the library card is free. So reading is fundamental.
Yeah.
I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of just sitting with information, like trying to learn. But also the biggest part is just acknowledging that there will be gaps, of course. Like I can't know everything about everything. I'm very selective about what I choose to cover with regards to that. Like somebody was asking me why I haven't written about Gaza. And I was like, talk about information gaps. Like, I don't feel like we're even really getting accurate information about Gaza. And like, I don't like the way that it's being covered. I don't, but also in terms of my positionality, I don't feel like I'm the best person to cover that specifically. So like, if I were going to talk about it, I would talk about it probably from the intersectionality perspective of like Black liberation movements in connection with Gaza.
Right.
But yeah, like there's a lot to say.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot to learn. And like I don't want to be silent, but I also think it's important to cede the mic.
Right. And to be knowledgeable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I also don't feel like you have been silent. Like I was really impressed why we, which you were a co-executive director of, made a statement really early on in favor of Palestinian liberation, and I was incredibly moved by that. And as a volunteer at YWE, I was just like, yes, like this is an organization I should be at. And like, I think there's a difference between being silent and being like, I am an authority on this subject and I'm gonna write and get something published on it. In a similar vein, I was wondering if you would be comfortable talking about DK Echo Hawk and sort of the revisions that we're making in the next printing of Still True. So I guess the question for you is, what are the changes that we're making between the first printing and this new printing?
Yeah, so in the first edition, we have like a really lovely essay that was written about a comedian named Howie Echo Hawk at the time. I went to Boom Boom LaRue's Dear White People, which was this like incredible like variety show that was at Theater Off Jackson, and I was not there to cover it at all. I was there with some friends hanging out.
Yeah.
And as soon as Echo Hawk stepped on the stage, I was like so deeply uncomfortable. But it was like, yeah, like they had this really incredibly abrasive style of comedy that in which they compared white people to the Airbnb guest from hell who came and stayed and never left. And it's funny. Yeah, like we're laughing, right? It's funny. Like it's good comedy, but it's also like deeply traumatic and and pretty messed up. So like I just I had this experience where the article was writing itself. So I followed up and did a piece. Like we did an interview together, and what I didn't realize at the time was that was their very, very first show. Yeah, so it takes on a different significance even because like I remember that year at the Globies meeting their entire family, and like the Echo Hawks were like, oh my God, thank you so much for writing that piece. You don't even know, like da da. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't.
I guess it's the time when we drop a disclaimer that Colleen Echo Hawk isn't an investor in Hinton Publishing. So
okay.
So, anyway, Colleen, who is DK's sibling.
Yeah, well, which irregardless, which did not impact in any way the choice I was making this. But yeah, like after that, they got opportunities to go on TV shows because of this article, right? So this is part of why, like, when we were deciding whether or not to include it in the initial book, I was like, we have to include it. because this was such a like pivotal moment. But what I didn't realize is that for DK, it's actually looking back on one of the worst moments of their life, because it's kind of that thing where like the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. And like, yes, they were in the middle of the spotlight, but they weren't out yet as trans. They hadn't had that comfort level to talk about how they were really being in the world, or how they really wanted to be in the world. They were suicidal. The comedy that they were putting out was actually so confrontational because of the suicidality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we had this opportunity. We what's her name? Leonie? Are we?
You're talking about the author of a review of Still True that ran in Real Change?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what the author's name was, to be honest.
I think it's Leonie. She called me out for misgendering DK Echo Hawk, which is actually untrue. Like that, I deferred to them on their gender identity at that moment. But it's old, right? Like the piece is old, so of course they have different pronouns, they have different name, they have a different way of being now. And so does maybe not names and pronouns, but a lot of things have changed for all the other people in the people section as well.
Right.
So I didn't necessarily feel like we needed to do an update, but it gave me the opportunity to have an actual conversation with DK. And when I reached back to them, they told me more about like what it felt like in that moment for them. And so we came to the decision that we were going to do a new interview and replace that, because they're actually living their best life in this moment. She is thriving and happy and traveling around the country doing this indigiqueer thing, which is like kind of part healing, part dance party, part really incredible clothing and music and all sorts of things. So when I think about like what it is to create a time capsule and think through like, okay, what do I want my legacy to be? It's not necessarily the most depressing, debilitating, awful part of another person's life.
Yeah.
And in this way, I think the piece that we're replacing it with captures what it takes to go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And that's the kind of resilience that I especially think that people of color need to read about.
1,000%.
Absolutely.
1,000%. I do just want to ask you and shift ever so slightly to the promotion of this book and
sure.
And what that's been like for you, because I know there's so many authors who say, you know, I wrote this book almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. In your cases, some of the pieces were first written 8 years ago.
Right.
And, you know, you're in the middle of living your life and doing everything else. And then, you know, you have to go, to these bookstores and various other places. And then talk about, writing that is a little older and that, you may or may not feel is something that you would have written today or not, or something that is a writing that it may or may not be indicative of where you are right now. And so what has that whole sort of tour and process of promoting the book been like?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is really fun. I'm a Leo, so I channel my extroversion into these moments where I get to be there, present with folks who want to engage with my book. So there's definitely this feeling of deep gratitude that people are as interested as they are, that they're as inquisitive, that they want to know like how this process has been for me or what it is that I was hoping to convey, or they want to like argue about certain points. Or I like it. I like the engagement. I like the conversation that we get to have. I will say it's grueling. Like it's physically taxing to go to different locations and not really know who's going to show up or who's not. Walk into a room and it's 80 people, walk into a room and it's 2 people, walk into a room and it's 80,000 people, and Kamala Harris is like using your golf cart. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's really been wild in terms of just, I never really know what it's going to be like. But to that end, I'm really proud of the book that we put together. I think it's really great. I stand by it, and it's been really, really cool to get to connect with people I wouldn't have connected with any other way.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you mind sharing some of the highlights and high points of this publicity journey with getting the word of Still True out there?
Yeah. Well, okay, my two biggest highlights, of course, like one was the book launch at Elliott Bay Books. And part of that is like Elliott Bay Books was the first bookstore that I went to in Seattle, like at age 17, like right before my 18th birthday. Like I was in Pioneer Square back in the day when that's where it was. And randomly, this is an aside, happened to be interviewed by the New York Times about bookstores.
Oh,
What?
wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
there's like, my mom called me up and, on Sunday was like, did they just quote you about waxing poetically about bookstores in
Oh,
the
wow.
New York Times?
Amazing.
Yeah. So fast forward now, I get to be at Elliott Bay Books and just walking in and having been in that space for so many other authors' readings, and to look out and see it overflowing and just the love that I felt from the city. It felt really beautiful and really special. And it's like definitely a moment that I'll carry with me wherever I go.
That's awesome.
And then highlight 2 is Essence Fest.
Yes. Yes.
Tell our listeners about Essence Fest.
Oh my God. So for those of you white people who don't know what Essence is, because everybody in the Black community does.
Yeah.
Essence is like one of the oldest Black magazines in the country. And every year they put on this incredible festival. It's like literally 80,000 people descend upon New Orleans. And it's 3 days of art, music, hanging out, really cool jewelry, awesome vendors, food, like connection. You see all the Black Miss Americas are there. Everybody's there.
You see every shade of black.
You see every shade of black, and then every extra on any Tyler Perry movie you've ever watched. It's just like out there living their life. Like
so half of Black America.
3/4. Yeah, so it was really cool to be invited. I got to be on stage with Bakari Sellers, who's one of the youngest members of the House of Representatives coming out of South Carolina. Now he's a correspondent for CNN.
Yeah.
And then Ijeoma Oluo, who needs no introduction.
Yes.
And Reggie Bailey, who's a book influencer. And he's got a really cool podcast you guys should check out too.
Yeah. Is it? I was gonna say, in terms of, I remember when we first talked about signing you to Hinton, and we talked about, well, I know you were quoted in the South Seattle Emerald, actually, a favorite publication of mine, of course.
Of everybody's.
Since I founded it. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
No, but you talked to the interviewer and you said, there's no reason why, you shouldn't be on the same level as in Ijeoma Oluo or Roxanne Gay, or any other prominent author. And so I wanted just to really talk to you about sort of that moment being there at Essence Fest, where you're on stage with these New York Times best-selling authors,
right?
And internationally best-selling folks. Like, did you feel in some ways, I don't want to say that you've arrived, but did you feel like, yeah, this is my throne too, sort of?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I had that moment. First, I think it was good that I brought beginner's mind to it, and I brought like more enthusiasm, I think, than the rest of the panelists, because they were like, yeah, we're here, we're doing the thing.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, we're here, we're doing the thing, but we're here, we're doing the thing. Like,
Right.
Essence Fest, this is awesome. It's popping. Like, all these people care about Black books. Like, so there's definitely like a living my best life moment that was happening that I think everybody was really responsive to, that level of enthusiasm that I was bringing. But also there were 2 moments that happened. One where like Ijeoma kind of cut me off, not on purpose, but just she was very excited and she had a thing that she wanted to say.
Yeah.
And so, I conceded.
Right.
And then Bakari really talked a long time on one of his questions.
Let's just say he's very deliberate in his delivery at times, right?
Well, and also the crowd was there for him. Like, and I have enough self-awareness to understand that that's why they were there. It was a Southern audience. Like, it was a thing. And so, like, I understood the choice he was making. But when the mic came back around and it was like the last question, I deliberately took my time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you got all of CNN.
Right.
Like, y'all got, you're going to have these other events. Like,
right.
I believe in myself and I believe in my work, and I know that I will have other opportunities to connect as well. But I needed to take up that space. And I needed to be heard. And it made me feel really good to not be afraid of it. And to not feel like I needed to back down or diminish myself because it would be more convenient for other people or make them more comfortable.
Right.
But like after the mics were off, Bakari was like, dang, he was like trying to talk me into the commercial break. And I like laughed and I was like, yeah, brother. No. No.
But you knew it was your moment and your spot. It's kind of like I was watching this documentary about the Arsenio Hall show, and they talked about Tupac Shakur and how he used to be with this group, the digital underground, and they had this song called the Humpty Dance.
Yeah.
It was silly then, it's silly now. But anyway, they Digital Underground got to be on the Arsenio Hall show to perform, and like Tupac was like, I got my little like 2 verses, but dang it, I'm gonna make them 3 today, and just come out and perform, and that's and like really showcase his majesty and his stardom. And so I always love those stories of like people taking it upon themselves to say, no, I'm going to show you who I am.
It was a 3-verse moment.
Okay. Probably slightly better than the Humpty Dance. I'm gonna assume.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up here, I want to just ask you this question about, because I know there are a lot of listeners to our podcast, at least I'm assuming, who are writers, similarly situated to where you were like 5 or 6 years ago, where, there are people who write every day. I don't know if everybody does the 1,000 words in the morning as soon as you wake up, but, they write every day, they believe in their work, and yet for whatever reason, they sort of remain kind of, diamonds. I'll say emeralds, because emeralds are carat for carat, are worth more than diamonds. But there remain these emeralds in the world who, for whatever reason, people seem to bypass or ignore at times. And it's like these are people who, they're obviously shining. They're obviously need to have some level of acknowledgement and attention paid to them. What do you say to those people in terms of them not giving up, like them continuing to persist even when the commercial literary world may or may not recognize them?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the analogy, if we're going to go with the emerald, an emerald is valuable whether you find it or not, right? Like it's valuable in and of itself. For me, like, I think what's kind of kept me going, and one of the big choices I've made generally as a journalist was not necessarily to make this into my full-time work. And part of that was to have the option, the latitude to say no to things, to say no to the things that I didn't want to cover or didn't have any interest in. Like, I think there's something about really staying true to the integrity of your writing and what it is that you want to put out in the world, whether or not other people understand it or not. Because there's so many writers who, like, after death get famous because, oh my God, they were amazing, they were dropping wisdom. Like, you don't always know if you're like just ahead of your time or and who knows, like, I'm not saying you have to wait either. Like, it just, I think sometimes if it's just something that's in your spirit, it's just in your spirit, and it'd be a detriment to the world if you didn't follow that.
Well, that is, I think, a beautiful place to leave it.
I'm going to stop you right there. So we like to end every episode with an apropos of nothing question, just because we know that every author is a three-dimensional person who has a life even outside of their writing. So I wanted to ask you, again, listeners, I'm so sad you cannot see, but Reagan Jackson is someone who is always wearing bright and beautiful clothing, always looks incredible. I
Thank you.
would love to ask, how did you develop your personal style? And if you have any suggestions for someone who is not sure how to find their personal style, what are some steps they could take to maybe figure it out?
Well, it all started in Spain.
Yeah?
Yes.
Of course it did.
I went to Spain for my junior year abroad. And at that time, I would say my mom referred to my clothing as a uniform of jeans and a hoodie. Like that was my personal style.
Yeah.
A different pair of jeans, a different hoodie.
Okay.
And I got to Spain and I was wildly underdressed because all my European counterparts were in these fabulous outfits. They had these like gorgeous pants from Zara's that, yeah, like it was a whole thing. And, that was the first time I felt safe enough to start to explore like what it would be like to dress in ways that were feminine but didn't get me catcalled too much or didn't like, because that was the thing too, is like just the lack of safety sometimes that comes with presenting yourself in specific ways.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I lived in a small town in Cadiz, and I just started to want to dress for how I wanted to feel. And a lot of that did include vibrant colors and prints and, more dresses and whatnot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got to this prematurely, but I guess this is a good place to leave it. The book is Still True, The Evolution of an Unexpected Journalist by Reagan Jackson. Reagan Jackson, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Hinton Cast. This is all made possible by Hinton Publishing. If you would like to support the work that we do, please consider becoming a monthly supporter. If you go to hintonpublishing.com/support-hinton, you will see the many different tiers of support that you can sign up for. And no matter what your budget is, you can choose something that you will not miss at the end of the month. We want to thank Ben Hunter for this beautiful intro and outro music that we use. We want to thank Michael B. Main for recording the gorgeous audio of our conversation today. And we want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again